The following presentation is brought to you by kidThunder Productions. It's your buddy kidThunder. At this time, I am going to do a video response to AG's video regarding the question about the whole video game fanboyism. Where did obviously that derive from? Now, first off, the whole video game console wars pretty much has been going on ever since the days of the Atari 2600. Yeah, the Atari 2600 was obviously, primitive compared to like the consoles we have today, the PS Triple, the 360, and Wii. However, so if you look at it this way, it is safe to say that the whole video game console fanboyism didn't really start back then, because pretty much back then everyone just wanted to play a game for the most part, during the Atari age and whatnot. Despite the fact that there was no video game fanboyism there, you did have competition with the Atari 2600. The ColecoVision, the Intellivision, the Magnavox Odyssey 2. Yeah, it was a lot of people going after the Atari 2600 basically. Now, in terms of graphic superiority, the Atari 2600 had really limited graphics. The graphics were inferior compared to the Intellivision and the ColecoVision. But the games on the Atari 2600 were really fascinating. And that brings up my next point to this particular video response. AG, you actually were right on the money about, we can't deny that some of us are out there that were watching your video, would be considered quote unquote a fanboy. Like, take me for an example. Like, I remember back in the day, I was a rabid Nintendo fanboy, so to speak. Yes, I was pretty much showing my absolute love for Nintendo. At all times. Like, back then, like, I had an NES. I grew up playing the NES. My cousins, they had the original Game Boy. Now, I didn't really happen to own every single Nintendo product until recently, so to speak. But I don't actually own every single Nintendo product, as you can see. Pretty much every single, all of that is regarding of like, that's just pretty much out of the question anyway. But anyways, now throughout my whole Nintendo fanboyism, I did have an opportunity to play Sega, so to speak. Sega consoles. Like, I had my opportunity of playing the Genesis back in the day, so to speak. Even though for the most part I was playing Sonic on the Genesis. And NBA Jam and Streets of Rage, that sort of stuff. But did I bash Sega? No. I actually liked Sega. Sega was pretty awesome back in the day. Now, these days, like, some people do consider me as a Nintendo fanboy. Some people consider me as a Sega fanboy. And a Xbox and PlayStation hater. Now, come to think of it, in this day and age, yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I like the Xbox, I like the PlayStation, don't get me wrong. I mean, I've had an opportunity of playing the 360, the original Xbox, the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 3, as well as the PSX. Hell, I even had an opportunity of playing the PSP, so to speak. However, while having that particular opportunity, and this comes up to AG's point regarding of when did fanboyism get worse? Now, AG, you said that the fanboyism pretty much got worse during the days of the PlayStation X, PSX, the Sega Saturn, and the Nintendo 64. That I could slightly agree with you on that, but more so in my honest opinion, and I would think that the fanboyism of video games pretty much got worse during the days of PlayStation 2, GameCube, Xbox, and Dreamcast days. Now, excluding out the Dreamcast, because that was the system during the time period of the PS2, GameCube, Xbox, and Dreamcast generation. We had to exclude the Dreamcast away because the Dreamcast did not live as long as the PS2, the GameCube, and the Xbox. And with that reasoning, yeah, I remember that when the GameCube was out, well, when it was first released, it was originally released as an indigo console. They look quite purple almost, to a certain extent. And it kind of turned me off a little bit, because as a self-confessed Nintendo fan, like I am, I can't go wrong with that. But either way it goes, I still wanted a GameCube. And I remember seeing your video talking about nothing is wrong with Nintendo 64, which is true, because the Nintendo 64 was indeed an awesome system. And it did get some publicity, but not as much publicity compared to the PSX. Now, keep in mind the every single time when these days kids talk about certain video game consoles and whatnot, and the functionalities and all that kind of stuff. Well, to boil down to this, when I was watching this video entitled "Fanboys Make Gaming Look Bad," which was done by Rich of Review Tech USA, Rich made an absolute point stating that fanboys make gaming look bad. And with that reasoning, I would state that it is safe to say that the whole fanboyism in video games pretty much made me lost interest in gaming all of a sudden. Because when you come to boil down to it, you're right, AG. AG, you are on point stating that, is there a single video game console that ever came in existence better than another? The answer to that question is an absolute no. Because we can all learn that every single video game console that came into existence has its own strengths and weaknesses. Now, the sales of a video game console doesn't mean jack shit, in my opinion. Yeah, the Wii is outselling the PS Triple and the 360 due to the fact because it was revolutionary at the time when it first came out, which was back in 2006. The PS1 was a top seller when it was first released as well. Even the PS2 was a top seller too. The Atari 2600 was also a top seller, and so was the NES. But let's get it straight that, you know, video game sales doesn't mean jack at all, so to speak. But let's take it for example that you also make an excellent point stating that, you know, people who are my age, you know, I'm 23 years old and I'm about to be 24 next month. But they were like, you were saying that like people who are in their 20s who still thinks that one game system is better than another. Ooh, PS Triple is better than 360. I mean, 360 is better than PS Triple. Wii is better than PS Triple and 360. PS3 and 360 is better than the Wii. Seriously? Are you really trying to state that that's all we can think? One game console is better than another? I don't think so. As a matter of fact, I like the PS3. I like the 360. I like the Wii. Have I played them all? You bet your ass I have. Now, another thing is that in terms of fanboyism in video games, you know, it's all about preferences. You know, video game preferences. You know, for one thing, preferences is all about a matter of opinion. You know, I could care less about anyone who states that their preferences is the PS Triple library of games, the 360 library of games, and the Wii library of games. It's all about a matter of preference. I mean, vast majority of the time, I can respect their opinion. But once their opinion is set, I can relate to them. But that doesn't mean that once I can respect whose opinion on what video games do they like or whatever, does not necessarily mean that they can, like, you know, lambaste other people's opinions because they have a different, you know, a different variety of video games they like. Now, my next console purchase for a new one, will definitely be a Wii, if you were to ask me that. And I'm not trying to say that to be fanboyish, no. The real reason why I want to get a Wii is not just because the virtual console or WiiWare. I mean, aside from its quote-unquote shovelware titles that are on the Wii, there are some hidden gems that I should consider getting on a Wii. Hell, even said games like Metroid Other M, Donkey Kong Country Classics, and this new Kirby game, I forgot what the hell it's called, but this new Kirby game that's coming out on the Wii. I mean, they are pretty exciting. And it's worth mentioning that Nintendo, who I dearly love, it's the only company that I can state that they come out with a lot of games that are pretty much pick up and play for the most part. I mean, I could care less about a storyline or whatever, but I just want to play the game. And, you know, there are other sad games. I mean, sure, some people might state that, ooh, these are nothing but remakes and all that other bullshit. But the question is, wouldn't they be able to say the same thing about said games like Madden, GTA, or, you know, say like Halo games for the Bill Gates 360? They probably wouldn't, because more so these days gamers usually praise those said games that I just mentioned, compared to like the games that will usually be on Nintendo consoles anyway. But that's all I have to say about this response video. As of now, this is kidThunder signing off. Stay tuned for more.